With you about a year ago, I think, when you were up ready to do your show in New York.
How are things in Minneapolis today?
Well, we were filled with meat bags this morning, actually.
Oh, it all comes back. It always comes back.
Sorry about that. The Minnesota connection.
That's right. I'd forgotten all about that. We dodged a bullet there. There was a brief discussion of a heated lawsuit, as I recall.
Sorry. Didn't mean to ruin your day so early.
Yeah, a big case, Letterman versus meat bags. A landmark, a precedent-setting case.
For sure. David, I heard you talking about the weather situation here. I left here for Washington, D.C. instead of Detroit. Then I went to Detroit after that.
Oh, I knew you. I thought for sure you were in Detroit for a while, but I remember you as being the big gun in Minneapolis for a long, long time. And then I had an opportunity to go up. Do you remember a guy named Phil Bremen who worked at, I think it was KESTP?
Yeah, he was at KMSP. He was an anchor. Yeah, now he's on NBC. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then I went up and looked into the weather job there. And I think by that time you were leaving, but I can't recall.
Yeah, that was 74 was when I left. I left in November of 74.
Yeah, that's about when I was going up there.
Yeah.
I remember it was in October when I went up for the interview and the audition, and they'd already had snow fences up on the way in from the airport, and I said, ooh, I don't know, my gosh, maybe not.
A little scary. I guess we're on now, David. So tell us about this magnificent idea for the 4th anniversary show. It looks like it's going to be just a trip, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that's what we thought, but we won't know till it hits the air. The idea was we would do the television program on an airplane, so we got a major American Airlines, although it was not American Airlines, to supply us with a 747, and we loaded all of our equipment into it. We loaded some guests, a lot of the staff, a lot of their friends, and people and their pets to do stupid pet tricks, and we flew to Miami, and we taped the structure of the show on the airplane, and then we inserted some highlights from earlier broadcasts in the 4 years that we've been on the air, and we're still putting it together now. And when you do something like this, about all you can hope for is that the color turns out all right.
So a little tricky taping up there, is that right?
Well, it was. They did a great job. You know, it's easy to sit in a room and somebody says, how do you want to do the anniversary show? And somebody has the idea, let's do it on an airplane. Everybody says, great, we'll see you Monday. And then you go home and you forget about it. And then what happens is you trigger off a series of nonstop meetings with people all over the building here in New York City. And then the airlines gets into it. And then once the airlines gets involved with it, then the FAA gets involved with it. And then it took the crew here, the engineering crew, about 24 hours to load this plane up, and at 3 in the morning the FAA came out and made sure that when we plugged in a microphone it wouldn't cause engine number 3 to go out and that kind of thing. So it was a huge undertaking. I only hope that the finished result gives you some kind of indication of the work that went into the product, but it hardly ever does, and I think that's TV, and so thank you, drive safely.
You know, Paul Schaefer's from this neck of the woods up around Thunder Bay. Do you hold that against him at all?
No, I used to spend a lot of time, well, not a lot of time, but for me a lot of time in Canada. Toronto I spent some time in, and I think it's beautiful. And then in the Northwest, Vancouver I think is one of the finest cities you're going to run into. And as a kid I was up in your area, the Twin Cities, and used to go out to the old ballpark. It was Metropolitan Stadium, and where was it? Bloomington?
Yes.
Yeah. And I have memories of seeing the Twins play the Red Sox one summer when I was a kid. So no, I'm fond of that area.
What about all the bizarre ideas? I mean, you've been doing this for 4 years now, and even beyond that, is it all free association? You just look at the newspaper all day long and say, "Oh my God, let's do this or let's do that." How's it come?
Well, it comes, we have a staff of about 10 or 12 writers, and they come up with a lot of the ideas, but we're not limited to using ideas from the writers. Anybody on the staff who has a pretty good idea will use their idea and then fire them so they can't claim credit for it. So everybody on the staff here, everybody's name you see on the credit has open input to the show. And the first 6 months we were on the air, we did everything we ever wanted to do. And to our surprise, we were still on. So then we had to keep coming up with new ideas, and that's when it began to get a little tough. So you just try to find ideas around you, and that's the nice thing about doing the show here in New York. You're surrounded by humanity doing odd things, as humanity will often do if you let them, and I think those laws ought to be tightened up too. But it's pretty much anybody who has an idea will get it on the show, and anybody who has a pulse will sooner or later be a guest on the show, and that's how it works here.
Are you glad you turned out to be what you did rather than an anchorman at KMSP?
Well, you know, I always thought about that. As we talked earlier, I was actually offered the job as a weatherman there for very little money, I might point out. And I don't know. I just feel presently that I'm lucky to have a job, so I'm not sure that it would have ended up any differently. I wasn't much of a weatherman. I wasn't much of an anchorman, and I'm not much of a talk show host either, as it turns out, but we're continuing to fool part of the country.
Well, listen, the fooling is amounting to wonderful ratings, and you have a major following here. All of us here at the staff, we stay up especially to see you, even though we get up an hour later than when you go off. But just curious about one thing, and that was Jack Rollins' discovery, so to speak, of your talents. What was your first feeling when you really hit the national big time? Did it give you the butterflies, or were you pretty prepared for it?
No, it's you're never prepared for it. And my first real sort of major league experience in television was when I appeared on The Tonight Show. And to go on The Tonight Show and to do well is a real boost for you. You feel like you've turned a corner in your career, and you want to do well on the show because it's really a stamp of approval. It's sort of like you have arrived, and if you're good enough to be on The Tonight Show, then you're good enough to be in television. I know that sounds a little strange, but when you're first starting out, you really wonder not whether you're going to be able to do it. I think it's like a kid playing baseball. You know, you play minor league baseball, and then you work your way up to AAA, and then you get a chance to play major league ball, and it's a pretty good thrill. It's a real test, you know, and when you feel like you can do it, then there's some satisfaction involved there. Was that answer long enough?
Yeah, we'll be able to cut that really well. Thanks a million, David, and say hi to Bill Peters, please, too.
I'll certainly do that. Nice talking with you, Barry.
You too. Thanks, Dave.
Take care.